the idea of dreams and interpreting dreams. Now we don't bother with any of that. We can't interpret our dreams. Our dreams are out there poisoning us. And I actually think that they're taking...
Well, they're poisoning us. You're not saying they're a bad thing. You're saying they're a good thing that we no longer deal with.
Yes, but just like adrenaline is a good thing, if you use it to stand and fight or run away, if you don't do either of those two things, it actually poisons the system and gives you killer stress. I think that because we don't deal with our myths and our symbols anymore, they're actually creating things like the alien abduction scenarios and, you know, becoming menacing and out there.
But David's point is that science is another myth and symbol, isn't it?
Certainly.
You know, when we say, you know, E equals MC squared, you know, 99.9% of the population, including me, hasn't actually got the foggiest clue what that means, apart from somehow in inverted commas as a mechanism of truth. So it's not in some way that science, rationality, and symbolic mythology are opposed. They're just different versions of different ways of...
There's a differentiation here between science and technology that I think is very much confused in the public eye. Technology is the application of what science can discover. And science is only something which says, to the best of our knowledge at this moment, this is what we believe to be true, subject to correction upon the presentation of better evidence. Meanwhile, technology takes that, and they make the atom bombs, they make the flamethrowers and such, and science is only discovering truths. It doesn't make these things.
Yeah, but science is acting a bit like mysticism now, because it's discovering things that we as human beings have long recognized, that reality is a fluid process. It's an interaction between our experiences and the tales that we tell, and the paranormal emerges out of that.
That's science, a matter of definitions.
Well, you see, science, because it has to work on things that it can define in a laboratory and reproduce, cannot really explore.
James, let Jenny finish, please. Go on, then. Finish.
It cannot cope with the supernatural because it doesn't play by the same rules, and it struggled to entertain that. And I think gradually we're beginning to see science understanding that it's a whole new ballgame when you come to the paranormal, and they're understanding now what we've seen for a long time.
Can I have another question, which is, I posited at the beginning the idea of, is it getting weirder? And none of you answered it because you're a wild bunch and you've all gone off down other avenues. You're saying there's a disappointment to a degree with science. Are we agreed that there is something of that in the world? Is there a post-religion thing going on here?
I think one side of things is getting weirder in one definition of that, in that I think that the dark imagination, the imagination that lies behind the endless texts about child abuse and serial killers and so forth is getting more and more of a grip. I wouldn't think about that as weird, but there is a real question about how one could explain the psychopathology of things like that without invoking concepts rather like the weird. I'd think more about the uncanny and so forth, because we're dealing here in areas where there is no reliable science, where there is no reliable memory even. We're not even clear as to who remembers what in these kind of areas, whether that is a true memory or a reconstruction in the present. We're here into very, very strange areas. In a way, to call them weird seems to be a problem, because the word weird seems to me in a way too flippant to describe them, but we're certainly into areas which are well beyond most of the explanations we've been dealing with so far in the West.
I mean, the word weird isn't, I mean, you're the literature of terror expert here, Dave, but I mean, we're not talking about terror or horror. When we talk about the weird, I mean, I think just in the room next door there, that strange toast painting, it's kind of weird. There is a light element to weird as well as a heavy element to weird, isn't there?
In archaic societies, they actually had the mechanisms for coping with anybody who had a weird experience.
Yeah, that was my point.
As we've come into the modern era, we seem to have lost our way a bit.
And it's sad that, as David was saying about the dark imagination, it's sad that the archetypes we kind of invoke now are in fact, or rather evoke, are in fact the dark ones. We don't have the sort of cuddly mother images coming at us. We have these really grim ones that are actually coming from our own psyche and being projected onto something totally false. Strange syndromes are coming at us now from our own psyches.
Mary,
but I think you're all being kind of hopelessly unhistorical. I mean,
do you hear that? Hopelessly unhistorical.
I hear it.
Right, a whole lot of you. All right,
Mary, the floor is yours.
The nice cuddly image of, you know, once upon a time in the past we were all somehow kind of psychically connected. Well, you know, actually, no one's been psychically connected for as long as, you know, history has been around. You know, there are people in Greece, in Rome, you know, in David's period, throughout, you know, where the dark, the unexplained, you know, the whole business of what culture didn't want to take on board has been as nastily treated or as dismissed, whatever, as we currently do with the paranormal.
Yeah, but what happens was you go to a culture like the Aborigines, where they have shaman, medicine men, and they have what we would call mediums, but the difference is they revere them, they respect the comments that they make, they act upon them, whereas we are frightened by them.
We like to think that because we want to have them as our...
But you think we're romantic?
I've spent some time with the Aborigines and I've seen the way that they do behave,
but their
and they do treat them with respect.
Their experiences have are socially useful.
Yes,
that's the role of the shaman.
Because they've learned to do things which we've forgotten, which if we could learn again to understand and accept, and not be frightened.
That's where I differ with you.
But what
Mary, I'm going to let James please differ with Jenny.
Well, there's where I differ. You see, you assume that the shamans actually do something constructive. I agree that they do something constructive sociologically and philosophically, perhaps, and certainly psychologically. They do something constructive. But do their visions really work? Do their telepathic powers, their magical pulling of the thorns and whatnot, do they actually work? If you look into it, you find out they're no better than chance alone.
Well, this comes down to whether you accept that any kind of visionary experience can ever be real.
No,
I accept
that's
that
a
it does.
generalization.
No, I accept that it is possible because I've had experiences myself. I've talked to so many people who have had experiences which check out. I accept that sometimes they don't, and you have this value judgment you always have to make. And a shaman is going to be wrong possibly as often as they're right. But it's a way that you treat the material. The fact that you can accept it's possible rather than just simply do what I'm afraid most materialistic people do and reject it as impossible, probably because of the way they've been brought up.
Well,
we have to change this cultural image.
Some people may reject it on those
grounds. But the thing is,
I don't.
The point is that the world is getting weirder in the sense that people are becoming more open to all sorts of experiences. And because we have no mechanism to deal with it anymore, we've become, quotes, too sophisticated. People are believing in quite astonishing things. I mean, I should know, people write to me. But they also can't deal with, quite basic things like their own dreams. And I think this is actually terribly important. People are going from being quite sceptical to being completely credulous overnight and passing by all the valuable things in their own psyches on the way. And this is terrible. We have to actually stand back and look at ourselves and reevaluate ourselves.
And I'm afraid this has got a lot to do with James's countrymen, because the American influence in the paranormal is so devastating that it's actually, and the media are responsible too, because they portray it as if that is representative of what's happening in the world. Nothing beyond America is important, and therefore it influences everybody else.
I always thought a film like Ghostbusters, say, was the epitome of that, because it actually presented a technological solution to something which was intangible, that you could actually create machines which can actually nail the ghosts, or capture them, or see them, or whatever.
That's very interesting, because one of the terms here, I think, is concretization. When you're thinking about the treatment of psychosis, for example, you're thinking about the problem with some psychotic people, that they believe that things which have imaginative reality actually come to have material reality. That's a real problem. But when you think about Ghostbusters, you wonder, where is the psychotic there? Is it the belief in ghosts, or is it more to the point, the belief in a technology that can eradicate ghosts? That seems much more psychotic to me. The notion of actually construct a machine that can wipe out unreal entities seems to me completely mad. To believe in ghosts seems a minor peccadillo. By the way, I don't believe in belief. I think we're talking about the imagination. I don't think we're talking about belief.
But isn't that why James is dangerous? Or isn't that...
I don't know. Is he dangerous? I haven't noticed yet.
Maybe he's dangerous.
He insists on a giant hand.
He's pretty dangerous. And also, actually, I don't see why he's disagreeing with Jenny and Co. Because actually, I think he's in the same game, really. Because I think that the one thing that the paranormal needs for us to kind of give it a go is someone like James sitting there all the time operating as a skeptic. I mean, Jenny and James are not divided. They're actually two sides of the same coin.
The sad thing is, the skeptics, they're wonderful at actually coming in after the real researchers have done all the hard work and claiming that they solved the mystery that the real researchers actually did.
They make what it is. Every fanciful story.
Look at crop circles. They did it with crop circles.
Yeah. What the fanciful story needs is somebody saying it's a load of bunkum, or it's all done by trick. That actually.
James, her criticism. I want to go back to the original criticism. By being an employable skeptic of the weird, you actually validate the weird. Without you moaning and saying this isn't real, there's no fun somehow.
No, it's not a case of that, really, Tony. I think that the misconception is, first of all, that I'm a debunker. I have never been a debunker, and I've always denied the title. I'm an investigator. If it turns out to be something that can be debunked, then away we go. But if I started out with the attitude of this is something that's not so, and I'm going to show it to not be so, that would be a different attitude.
Okay.
I mean, I'm the debunker here because I'm generally known as a believer, if you like, broadly, in the paranormal. But I'm at long last debunking something I've researched, which is the Turin Shroud, which I started off hoping, it would be a nice paranormal image or something, and it turns out not to be. Now,